Am I missing something? I filled up my car yesterday and today it costs an arm and a leg. They've got a random price generator back there or something?
So we're going to clean out the strait.
Key waterway of the Strait of Hormuz.
40% of the world's oil goes right through here, the Strait of Hormuz.
What is happening over there? Why should a strait, or any strait for that matter, be this important? It's just water. I live in water.
Well, it depends. There are many straits in the world. Which one are you talking about, my friend?
The Hormuz. Everyone on the news is talking about it.
Ah, yes, the famous one. Well, to put it into perspective, a strait isn't just water. It's a hallway. And if you want to get out of the room, you have to use the hallway. Look there. The Strait of Hormuz is the only sea access for Iran's oil-rich Khuzestan province, plus Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Iraq, and the UAE. Their main export is oil.
So? Put it in trucks. Drive it out.
You can't just wander around in the desert or build massive heavy-duty highways in the shifting sand to reach other ports. It's a logistical nightmare. It is far more logical and economically stable to use ships. Ships are faster, safer, and can carry a huge load of cargo.
Okay, so they need the ocean.
Exactly. They have to have a way to international markets and waters. If Hormuz gets closed or even just becomes dangerous to sail through, it causes massive trouble. The sea route has to be accessible and easy to maintain.
Has a tiny strip of water always been this big of a deal?
Oh, absolutely. Let's look at some other straits and their history. One of my absolute favorites is the Bosphorus in Turkey. It runs through Istanbul. It connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Black Sea. Basically, it connects Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Georgia, Moldova, and most importantly, Russia to the Mediterranean and the rest of the world.
Wait, so before airplanes and massive trains?
Everything had to go by road or sea, and ships back then had a much shorter range. The famous Silk Road and routes through Siberia connected the east to the west. Trade powerhouses like Venice and Genoa would sail to the Black Sea, grab the resources, and distribute them to Europe.
Living a dream.
They were, until the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople in 1453. They essentially put up a giant "Do Not Enter" sign on the Bosphorus, halting European trade with the East.
Uh-oh. Did they just stop trading?
Nope. The traders were desperate. They looked west to find new routes to India and accidentally bumped into a whole new landmass, the Americas. Because one strait was barred, they accidentally mapped a new continent.
Okay, so Bosphorus is a big deal. Does it go anywhere else?
Well, the Bosphorus gets you to the Mediterranean, but to get to the rest of the world, you have to pass through another famous chokepoint, the Strait of Gibraltar. This connects the Mediterranean to the massive Atlantic Ocean. Historically, the Umayyad Caliphate used this strait to cross into Iberia, modern-day Spain and Portugal. It was a vital supply line for their military bases.
It looks pretty narrow. Could you just block it?
Funny you should ask. Back in the 1920s, a German architect had a fabulously expensive and utterly mad idea called Atlantropa. He wanted to build a giant dam across Gibraltar to literally drain parts of the Mediterranean Sea.
Drain the sea? Where would the fish go?
The goal was to create more land for countries to expand into, but it would have had extreme, disastrous effect on wildlife, nature, and the global weather system. Thankfully, it remained just a crazy drawing on a piece of paper.
Phew, okay. Any other crazy water hallways I should know about?
Let's look at two more. One in Africa, one in East Asia. The one in Africa is, surprise, surprise, connected to the Mediterranean again. It's called the al-Mandab Strait. It sits right between East Africa, specifically near Somalia, and the Arabian Peninsula. It holds massive importance because it connects the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal, straight into the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, and eventually the Pacific.
So it's like a shortcut so you don't have to sail all the way around Africa?
Precisely. Now, if you keep sailing east across the Indian Ocean, you hit the mother lode of trade routes, the Strait of Malacca. This strait is the main shipping channel between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. It connects major Asian economies like India, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, China, Japan, and South Korea.
That sounds crowded.
It is. Roughly a third of all global shipping passes through this tiny funnel. Because it's so narrow and crowded, it's a massive bottleneck, and historically, it was a paradise for pirates.
Yar, give me your cargo.
Even today, security in Malacca is a huge priority for global trade. Because if ships can't get through safely, factories in Asia don't get their raw materials, and stores around the world don't get their electronics or clothes. Which brings us all the way back to your first question, the Strait of Hormuz.
Right, the oil hallway. But wait, what's with the news stating a country can close a strait easily? Everyone is always threatening it. Can they do it?
That's an interesting question. It really depends on the geography. Each strait has a different width, and control depends on the military and coastline access of the neighboring countries. In the case of Hormuz, Iran has the longest coastline and controls some essential islands, which makes them a major gatekeeper.
So, could they just, park some giant ships across it, or put up a massive chain and say no entry?
It's a little more complex than that. Trying to close it legally would be an absolute nightmare, and closing it militarily would trigger an instant international crisis. But technically speaking, yes. A country could park ships in the way, deploy naval mines in the water, and arm coastal missiles.
But why? What do they gain from this?
It would essentially be economic suicide for them too. If the strait is closed, they wouldn't be able to export their own oil or import the resources they need. Their entire economy would collapse.
Oh, so it's basically a massive watery game of chicken.
Precisely. And the international market wouldn't just sit back and allow a major strait to be closed for long. Countries in the region have military pacts with global powers like the USA, the UK, France, and others. Those allies would eventually step in to secure the waterways, or at least apply enough heavy pressure so the country threatening the closure backs down. Interestingly, we've seen this play out before. Back in the 1980s, Iraq tried to make the area unsafe for shipping, and that's the real trick to modern geopolitical conflict.
What do you mean?
They don't have to literally close the strait with a physical blockade. If they just make it heavily unsafe, like what we see happening in the news right now, insurance companies refuse to cover the cargo. If there's no insurance, ships simply won't risk going in.
And if ships don't go in, the oil doesn't come out.
Exactly. And if the oil doesn't come out, fuel prices skyrocket. It becomes vastly more expensive to run factories, power homes, or fuel the trucks transporting your groceries. A conflict in a tiny strip of water thousands of miles away directly affects the price of the coffee you buy down the street. So these straits aren't just waters.
They are the arteries of every house, factory, and car on the planet.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm gonna make sure nobody's building a dam or laying naval mines in my bathtub. See you next time.